The recording has started.
Text-to-speech synthesis provided by Speechify.
For declared Americans only. Read every...
Greetings, welcome. We'll give people time. We have just a couple more minutes as we're filtering in. If you would go ahead and put your name, first name, and what county on Indiana that you live on. Or if you live on another state, put that county and state in the chat so we can welcome you to the call. And we'll get some of this going here. I think that should be, we've got free conference call, we've got Telegram, we've got OBS for, I'm not sure if it's going to catch Rumble, but it should catch YouTube. It hasn't been working for, it's trying to say it's doing Odyssey as well. It's saying feeding to Rumble, but I haven't been seeing any unless I've got to do something. Oh, I may have to do other things to bring them forward onto Odyssey, but we'll see how that goes. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get things going. Hopefully you should be able to hear me. So let's see. Everything should be, and we'll be running with free conference call as our primary tool, and we'll see how this goes. All right, so again, I want to welcome you. I am Christine, and I am on Gibson County, Indiana. I'm state coordinator, lead recording secretary for the Indiana Assembly, and this is our new member general member orientation call. So I have a lot of calls that I do. All right, so we'll go ahead, and it is now 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get things rolling here. Again, I want to welcome you to the call. Make sure you put your first name and county on Indiana that you live on. We want to welcome you. Put it in the chat wherever you're at, whether you're on Telegram, free conference call, YouTube, maybe Rumble, maybe Odyssey. I don't know about how those are doing, but either way, we're glad to have you on the call with us. So we'll go ahead and get things rolling. All right, so we're going to start with the Bivens Declaration. You might as well get familiar with this because this is presented at all the assembly calls, so be familiar. This is a public meeting. Anyone in this meeting claiming any form of U.S. citizenship or employment with any federal agency is now, for the next segment of this gathering of new member orientation class, invited to either declare your presence and business here, or we ask you to leave the class at this time. I will repeat, if you're a U.S. citizen or an undeclared federal agent, please raise your hands or vacate our gathering. And if you are, put it in the comments. Again, it's not that you can't be here, it's just that you need to disclose who you are, right? Hearing and seeing none. All right, and again, I will repeat, if you're a U.S. citizen or undeclared federal agent, please put a comment in, or if you're in free conference call, I think you should be able to raise a hand or something like that if needed. All right, hearing and seeing none. For the third and final time, this is notice that if you don't respond appropriately to this Bivens Declaration immediately, you are made fully liable for your lack of disclosure, and any so-called evidence that you collect is tainted and inadmissible. No one can attend any of our meetings in secret or in private without answering to a roll call or without announcing or declaring their presence. All right. We get all of that, the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Move this down here a little bit for free conference call. We'll bring this back up. All right. So, a common misconception corrected. The primary goal of this assembly is to reconstruct our lawful government by the people, or of the people, by the people, and for the people. Means we the people are the ones that completely man every bit of this. Okay? So have that in your mindset. This is done by helping people with their status corrections and educating people on what has happened and what we're doing to correct the wrongs propagated on Americans by our wayward employees. While remedies are nice to have, keep in mind that in rebuilding our lawful government, most of the remedies will not be needed because our wayward employees will be brought back under the correct auspices allotted to them under the Constitution. So we're here for the restoration of the lawful government. This is for freedom for all Americans. Okay? All right. Oh, I got that to work. Cool. So now we'll have that recording added to the free conference call recording. All right. So, all new assemblymen and women are to attend the orientation classes. This is to ensure a strong foundational knowledge about how we are organized, how committees are formed and how they function, and the overall goal of the assembly. Given previous experiences, it was determined to be the best course of action to help people adjust to the way things are done within the assembly, since it differs from the corporate model that we've known all our lives. So at the end of the orientation classes, there will be a knowledge review where attendees will answer questions to test the foundational knowledge. Upon passing the panel, attendees are considered graduates to join the committee. Now we are developing this panel. So those that are state nationals, if you're interested in participating with this panel, we are looking for members to be able to join this panel. But at this point in time, there's not going to be a knowledge review process, but it will be coming eventually. All right. So some key concepts to always remember: you're self-governing. We're a community. It's a family of people working to restore our lawful government. We're not employees. We're all volunteers at this time. Okay? So that also means there's no pay. We're doing this for the preservation of Providence, right? That's what it says in the Declaration of Independence as well, the very last line, right? We do this in preservation of Providence and for our life, and giving our life, our wealth, everything to be able to support this mission, because it takes precedence right now. We will always recommend that you follow up on everything, and you're going to have to research the information yourself. I can lead you to the information, but it's still, I can't tell you, yes, absolutely this or this or this or this, because that may not be something that can work for you. There is no cookie cutter plan for a lot of this other than getting the foundational documents in place. As far as helping to peel you out of what you're going through, that's all going to be on you, because it all boils down to how much your knowledge is and then how you're able to articulate it, right? And while we all know we shouldn't have to go through this, but you have to be able to articulate the whys. You can't just say, because I'm an American and that's how it is. No, you have to be able to articulate as to why. So we're always going to do our best to help you find the answers. So, it's going to be sending you somewhere that's mostly going to be an ANA resource, right? An article, and trying to include a audio video link so you have both opportunities, a way to print it out or read it online, also hear it read. So that you can go to spirit within you and say, okay, what from this do I need that's going to help my situation? Okay? But you're going to I can't open your head up and pour the knowledge in there and then be able to teach you how to articulate it out of your mouth either. This is something you have to come to be able to do. Okay? But again, I can bring you the information. I can help point you in the right direction to find information, but then it's still going to be on you to be able to break it down. Is that going to actually help you, or do you need all the steps, or how is it going to work for you? Because you're the one that has to put it together. You're the one that will be paying the consequences. So that way you know exactly what you're walking into, even though you may not realize it, this may be a mistake, this may be a mistake. It's based on the knowledge that you had at the time when you were putting it together. right? So things that you're going to have to start letting settle in. Excuse me. So, basic foundation and understanding for assembly members. All right, so let's see. Making sure if there's any comments. All right. I think we're, oh, I don't want to mess with that. Okay, so, we'll get that back to look like this over here. All right, so we'll go ahead and keep moving forward. And again, if you've got questions, put it in the chat. I will do my best to try and go back and forth to be able to answer. And it may be afterwards, kind of getting to that to support your questions. Unless you're sitting on a call, like in free conference call, that you can be able to actually get on mic and speak. All right. Okay, so paperwork. Every member of the assembly needs to have their paperwork prepared for declaration of status correction. So it's a two-step process. It's technically three, because you've got to be able to show verification that you did it, right? So you've got to get your paperwork. It is a two. You're getting your paperwork prepared, recorded, published, right? But then you also have to unless you're getting it recorded and published through the assembly, if you're going through a state of Indiana public notary or using a county recorder to record your documents, you still have to actually present to the assembly so that we can make sure that you're listed as stating that you've claimed that you're alive. It's really easy to put paperwork on those public records, because unless somebody's actually looking for them or you actually want to use them for anything, it's not going to be beneficial to you. Actually presenting your correction status with the assembly opens you to be able to receive the additional support. And then if you're wanting to step up to support the reconstruction with the assembly, and you have to present yourself, and it's through this paperwork. You can't, you don't have to participate with the assembly. You don't have to do anything with the assembly at all. But in order to reap some of the rewards, so to speak, you have to present that you have status corrected. You can't just email in and say, hey, I'm a national and I want to be able to tap in on getting access to the prosperity card. No, you have to verify that you have done your status correction. Means you have to actually present that paperwork. So what paperwork is available? There's two routes to be able to do your status correction. You can either come as an American state citizen, one that has that sense of duty, responsibility, wants to step up and participate in some way. You may not know how yet, but you need to do something to help support the assembly. So you're going to make sure you want to have the 928 done. That's the 928 bundle. It has a core of 6 documents within that bundle, and it's all 6 for the whole bundle. Not hit and miss what you think you want to play with. The entire 6 documents. Rebuts all the fraudulent assumptions, the 928 bundle, plus you do have to present 2 witness testimonies. That's from 2 witnesses that have known you for at least 7 years, and preferably over the lawful age of 21. And this is from Anna's Article 1598, Minnesota Rule 220. Excuse me. And if it's not like a natural mother, natural relationship, where obviously it would be something from whose ever birth, right? If it's something from married in or however, then friends, co-workers, you make sure they include the length of time known. Okay? It will be returned the status correction will not occur until you've had them present how long they've known you. Okay? It's part of the identification process. Alright, so And that's also, again, if you're wanting to support. Now, it also, all of the documents, regardless, still rebuts all the fraudulent assumptions. So it's your teeth to be able to support you in your standing. It's beneficial for women, especially because of married names, name changes, that helps support women to capture all those names through that process. Where the 1779 Declaration of Naturalization is only going to be your current trade name, your walking name that you're going in today. So for women, you want to claim all your names. So you really should work with that 928 bundle, but you can still make that choice of being a national even with the 928 bundle presented. Then there's and of course, if you're wanting to participate with the assembly, you're going to have to make sure that there are to fulfill the requirements of no licenses, dual loyalties, or dual citizenship status. And that is because you can't serve two masters, and that's split heads, right? Split heads, split tongues, split everything, right? And that's not how it works here. All right, so then there's the fast track, the one pager. The quickest route home is the one page 1779 Declaration of Naturalization. Again, it still requires the two witness testimonies and verification of living on Indiana today, because you can't present to a land and soil state assembly if you don't actually live there, because it's about where you're standing, where you live today. Not about where you've been, not about where you plan to be, or not about where you just would like to be. It's where you actually live today, where you call home today, not where you hold residence. We don't hold residence. We're domiciled. We live on the land. Okay? And again, you have to present. Greetings, John. Welcome. 4 o'clock. Oh, pardon. No specific to put that time. Not sure. Okay. All right. Well, we're glad you are. Make sure you put your county in. I know your county, but you want to make sure you let everybody else know. And welcome to the call. All right, we'll go ahead and keep right on going. So now in the 928 bundle, which John knows that he's been working with right now, getting recorded. So the 928 bundle, I said, has 6 core documents. It's the acknowledgement and acceptance of deed of reconveyance. If you were born on one of the 50 states, then it's the deed of reconveyance. If you were born on a U.S. territory or a U.S. possession or another country, then you would do the deed of conveyance. Then there's that deed is bringing you, the living man or woman, back on the land from the moment of your birth. Okay, you have to be standing on the land to even say that you're alive before you can even do anything, right? So then you have the certificate of assumed names. Now that is where it's capturing all the different variations that was created at the time of your birth through the birth certificate process. And we'll go a little bit more into that as well as those, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll be able to start getting this information to walk you through this process and give you more details as well. But also the certificate of assumed name, that is you're the administrator of all the names. That's where you've copyrighted all the names. That's where you're first priority creditor. That is, think about it, first priority. That comes before secured party creditor. So if there's a first party creditor, a secured party creditor will never ever see anything from it. Okay? So this is your claiming that your first priority creditor, your postmaster for your vessel. This is where if you're wanting to operate in trade of any sorts, you use that certificate of assumed name as your DBA. And if you have a business, you can be able to include that name. If you do have a business already and it's through the corporate system, once you have your base correction status in the 1779, 2 witness testimonies, birth certificate, just the bare minimum, then we have what's called a deed we have the process to be able to convert your your business out of the public and into the private. So that way you're keeping your business, right? But it would be in the certificate of assumed name that you would include the name, but when you put that business name in there, don't add LLC or Inc. or Corp. or Company or anything like that. Don't add that after part. Only put the actual name that you named your business. Okay? And this works. You can open accounts and you just call it a DBA, and the people know exactly what it is and they move forward with that. Okay? They're not going to know what it means by certificate of assumed name, but they'll know if you just call it a DBA when you're using it for that purpose. And it gives you the same authorities, right, to be able to open be the banker and mail and all of that. Okay, and you could not have done that had you not been born on the land and claimed that you're alive through the deed, right? So you wouldn't be able to claim all the powers and authority that come with that had you not stood up on the land first, right? Then there's cancellation of all prior powers of attorney. We do have, if you do have an exemption, because many people, they have like a medical power of attorney sort of thing for a family member to be able to support them. So we do have where it has an exception to be able to include something like that. But it is to cancel all prior powers of attorney, whether known, unknown, assume, presume, whatever it was prior to. So that way they cancels anything that they want to try to pull. Okay, so the cancel prior power of attorneys, which I need to rework that, but the cancel prior power of attorneys, that's for you, the living man or woman. Okay, so it's the full name, first, full, middle, last name, and you'll have one for women, it'll be one for each name. So most men are only going to have one. Okay? Now there are some that will have like junior or senior or the second the suffix after the name. So then you will have two, because you'll have one without that suffix and one with the suffix, because you don't always use the suffix, but this way you're claiming it in both directions. Okay, so that's you, the living man or woman, through the cancel of all prior powers of attorney. The acts of expatriation. Now that's you, the administrator of all the vessels, is expatriating the vessels that they created. Okay? So that's why you'll be able to see here that they, at the time, one, they created a trade name through the initial birth certificate of adding the family name to after your first and middle name. Okay, the given name. That's the trade name. So that's the all upper and lowercase. That's where it started out with the territorial. Then it goes to all caps for that same name, but in all caps, because then that's the trademark estate. Then the first, middle initial, and last for transmitting utility. And then the third is the first and last name only for ward of the state. So there's a set of 3 for each name, unless you do not have a middle initial or your middle name was only an initial. There are some that do that as well. Okay, so, and you couldn't have canceled the power of attorneys, and you couldn't have had the authority to expatriate all the vessels had you not brought yourself back on the land, and had you not done the certificate of assumed name that where you're claiming all the authorities that come with that, right? Okay, so then you have, because you've done all this now you can do the mandatory notice. This is the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, And I tell everyone, look up all the codes. Anywhere you find codes within any of your documents, you should be looking them up so that you know why it has that code. What does that mean? You should take some deep dive study into your paperwork directly and read it with your personal information in there, as well as reading it out loud so you can hear it with your personal information. Alright, and then you wouldn't have the authority to be able to claim Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act had you not done the previous steps. And then it ends with the DNA paramount claim of life. Now this is where it goes not only back from the time of your moment of birth as the deed of reconveyance, this is where it goes back to the moment that even before you were in your mother's womb. Because we were told, it's in the Bible, that God knew us before we were in our mother's womb. So this goes back to the time of your parents coming together. It is very metaphysical, very spiritual, and they know it. You've got to get on board with it. As well as you've got to stop having a sloth mentality, because they've gotten everyone to appreciate a cute little sloth, but you really need to look up what sloth means. And because of that, that's why many are not fulfilling their responsibilities. So if you wish to participate on the assembly then and reconstruct, we're here to reconstruct. We're not here to reform in any way, nor are we here to create any kind of battles. The Reformation process, they're handling that. We're seeing it. We're seeing the court system being turned inside out right now. We're seeing the college level education system being turned inside out. So let them do their thing. Okay? That's working. But that's also because we've got to stay focused to do what we're supposed to do so that we can say no to them. Okay, so if you're wanting to participate in the reconstruction as an ASC, you'll need to complete all the other needed documents that's listed on the website. This is the Declaration of Political Status. It's a process. It's not just getting that document notarized and published. There's actually 2 cover letters. It goes to U.S. Secretary of State Blinken and Assistant Secretary of Consular Affairs Bitter. Now, I'm suggesting, because you have to send one of them with an actual embossed document, whether it's a notary's embossed seal or it's the assembly's embossed seal. It's the crimping of the paper. And I've been stating, you're still up to you, but I've been suggesting not to send it to Blinken, but to send it to Bitter. Being that she's with Consular Affairs, she's actually going to be able to do something with it. And because Blinken's not even working, right? But send a copy to Blinken, because they need that in their face of all those people that are saying sayonara to your nonsense, right? So it's an actual process. So you have you got to get the Declaration of Political Status notarized and make sure it's got its crimped. And also helpful that if you can show that it's already been recorded and published, that adds further teeth with it. Then you have your cover letters, and then you're going to have, because you're going to want to send that preferably registered mail. You can do priority mail. Just make sure that you put on that each cover letter the responding mail number that it's getting, so that it connects with the receipt, postage receipt that is your verification of having mailed it. You may or may not get a green card, and that postage receipt is going to be your verification that you at least served that notice. Cancel a voter registration. Anywhere you have ever registered or voted at, you want to cancel voter registration. That's where it gives them the authority to take your physical vessel. That's where they summons, arrest. That's the ward of the state that they like to use with that. Then there's the revocation of election to pay taxes, the fee schedule. If you have any children or grandchildren under the lawful age of 21, present the birth certificate And there's a baby deed process. It's a process too, so it's not just getting the baby deed notarized and published. It's also a matter of then also mailing it to the Secretary of State. Okay? There's always a second piece to it. So even though you can fill all the other documents out and you only actually need them when you want to actually use them, everything you're doing though, there's something you're going to have to do with it. Don't just think, well, that's just that. See me but don't. Recognize me but don't. There's no cover up fixing everything. You still have to be able to know who you are and how to articulate it. All right, so as a American State National, we have the Declaration of 1779, and it too you're going to have to still present 2 witness testimonies. If it's not natural family that would know you from birth, but also that preferably they need to be over the lawful age of 21. But it's that if they're through marriage or friends, family, or second and third layers out of family, put how long they've known you. It needs to actually be on the witness testimony, because a friend, you could have just met them. We actually have someone on YouTube that had the gall to put, hey, I only need to find 2 witnesses in this county to say that they know me and I'm good to go. Well, that's not how that works. They have to have known you 7 years at least to know you. This is not a game, okay? This is for real. This is real life. And it seems like he really needs to go into more of like a municipal assembly, because he does want a lot of hand-holding for things. He's not ready to, he doesn't have the courage to stand up and do anything. He wants to be that armchair quarterback, though. That's what Anna calls them, is armchair quarterbacks. Okay, so what's the difference between the 928 paperwork and the 1779 document? All right. It's in the same comment where we're putting how they know you. In the same line where it says friend, put friend for 10, 12 years. Same place. Well, he's making different decisions right now. It would be helpful, but we can get into that, and that's a little bit more personal than this is supposed to be a general call for right now. So we can get a little bit more into that, but he's gone into the Air Force, so that's he's already done a few things. So at some point he's probably going to have to end up doing all the paperwork, because now he's committed. You can't get him out with it. All right, we're going to move forward. That's a much more deeper than what this call is about. Okay. So the difference. So the 1779 is the quick way to get back on the land and soil. The 928 is that bulletproof, but you do need it to be a American state citizen. And there are, for the general and militia assembly, citizen is mostly for certain elected roles, but it's also for only dealing with international business, as well as only ASCs can be on the business assembly. All right. So, publishing your paperwork. So, you've got 4 options, 4 different ways that you can publish your paperwork. And again, I state, even though you don't publish it, don't submit it to the assembly to publish to the LRO, at some point you still have to present to the assembly so you can be counted as being alive on the county. You can't just, well, I've done it, so now I want to go ahead and tap in on the prosperity card. I want to be able to get the debt redemption bundle, and I want to get the private auto plates and all that. No. You cannot do any of that as a U.S. citizen. You don't have any rights to it. And if you're stating that you've corrected your paperwork, then as an honest American, you would have no problem with presenting that. That's how we are. U.S. citizens they like to hide. They're always still in hiding, always running, trying to dip, trying to dodge, trying to get out of something. So, but also to know, if you're publishing to the Land Recording Office, then you also are supporting the assembly directly as well. The other options, no fees, come to support the assembly. You're supporting their services. And therefore, any issues that you have to contact them as to what your issues are. It has nothing to do with the assembly. The second option is the Global Family Group International Land Recording and Publishing System. There's the website. Again, no fees are sent to the assembly to support that, but if you do want access to the Prosperity Card, you will have to have an account there, and there too, you will have to present that you have corrected your status. You have to present the minimum of photo ID or current photo ID or driver's license or credential. You have to prove verify that you are living on your state. And at least the 1779 declaration, and of course the 2 witness testimonies. You're welcome to upload other items there with it, but those are the minimums to access the Prosperity Card. But you still have to present there as well that you're a state national. You can't just say, hey, I've done this, and you have to take my word for it. Again, U.S. citizens rely heavily on hearsays and I said so's. Where we're here, we're actually fact-based and evidentiary-based. So when fully published, so then you have this option, which publishing through the LRO, once you have declared have your minimum presented, then you will be getting the access information, the details of how to create your account and all the details, because at that point you have verified that you are a state national with the assembly, the actual de jure government that's responsible for maintaining that information for you. You can't just say, hey, and you can't also go ahead and do a 1779 and put it on a county recorder's office but never actually present it to the assembly, because if you read it instead of just standing there in front of a notary to sign it, autograph it, you should have actually read it, and it states that you're actually presenting it on the record of the Indiana Assembly. And if you don't, you're not telling the truth. Then that's on you, because if you're trying to say that and they want to come and verify it through the assembly, we have to say no because you didn't present. Okay, so then there's also a county of county recorder's office. You'll want to either use the Register of Deeds or as a miscellaneous. The counties are different. Again, whatever fees you pay there have nothing to do with what comes here. Whatever their thing is, that you have to deal with them. Or you have the option that you can, and that's dwindling now as far as publishing actually in a newspaper, but there's a timeline to follow of actually publishing it in a newspaper. But again, you're paying the newspaper to publish that. You're not paying anything to the assembly for that. But it meets the publishing need. Another point is that if you're wanting American State National credentials, you're only going to get them through having an account member record through the LRO, and the Assembly Recording Secretary has to be able to verify in the LRO for you to be able to be authorized to get the credentials. So you're going to be going to both systems, and you're going to have to present one way or another, because if you're wanting credentials and access to the Prosperity Card, and again, you'll get more details about what all is involved with the Prosperity Card at that once you verified you're a state national. Okay. So will be used as a replace. So the credentials, that's what I've got here, is that it's through the LRO for your credentials, and we put the challenge out there that once you get your credentials, that you get two for the fee. That way you have one that you can put in your private records and also as a backup, and then one that you keep with you. And we suggest, we put a challenge out there, is to start leaving the driver's license at home and have the credential, and start working with that. Even if you're never actually having to use it and show it that much, just having it with you will start building that confidence and helping to support you with that. But again, if you're one that's prone to be pulled over on a regular basis, I wouldn't advise it, because you're at this early in the game, you're not going to be able to articulate your knowledge, and they're just going to mop you right up. All right, so here again are the additional documents after status correction and declaration of political status. There's also marriage paperwork, but you can't do the marriage paperwork unless your wife or husband is also a state national, to be able to go through that process. There's a common carry declaration, and it's not just about whether you're going to conceal or openly carry a weapon, but think about that your pen is mightier than a sword, right? It's a direct extension because it's for armory, right? So think about your paperwork. It's common carry, and how you'll handle yourself in your whole overall demeanor. Baby deeds, your fee schedule. That includes all the combined code violations. You're not going to adjust the dollar amounts. We've had some that wanted to go ahead and no, the dollar amounts are already set, and it's not about, you're not expecting, you shouldn't be expecting to see money from the fee schedules, and you're not just going to start serving anyone and everyone. The fee schedule is if you've been harmed. The fee schedule is where you've also followed due process of serving initial. Once they've done something, you serve them. Here's notice. Here is my fee schedule. Should this continue, you will start receiving invoices from me. And here's a list of the fee schedule. Okay, but then you're going to have to follow that process. But the thing is don't think you're going to get that cha-ching. Because if you're looking for the cha-ching in this, you're in the wrong place. That's territorial. And municipal, because municipal's looking for the handout. They're a nanny state, right? So this is not about the cha-ching. This is about getting them to stop harassing you. And that's you use paper back on them. And play that and get paperwork back and forth with them. Alright. Military. If you're currently military, you would have to put that you're a federal person. You can still do the 928s. You would not be able to cancel with the IRS because you owe the taxes. You're an employee of the state of the U.S. government at that time. There's things you can still do but in the active building of the assembly, you would not be able to participate. But for retirement, there is a retirement process, a letter to go through and everything, because everyone knows, even though you got that DD-214 and you're retired, they can call you back at any point in time because they told you the first day you walked in that you were their property. Cancellation and revocation of licenses, also required if you're wanting to do committee work or elected or appointed official. And it depends on the license, though, and how it's being used. Okay, so we have to pay. That's why it's going to have to go before the membership committee from that perspective. Before being elected into a position, it have to be reviewed as to what type of license. Because if it's a bar, no. If bar license, no. If it's a real estate license, no. If it's a medical license, no. If you're a registered nurse, no. Till you've actually canceled those, revoked those, you would not be able to actively participate in the actual committee work or be an elected or appointed official, because you have to actually do the work. It's not just about, hey, I'm this role and I can put my name to it, but no, you have actual work to do, because we the people are having to actually man this whole operation. All right. Keep going. You're welcome, John. All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. So before publishing, but you can do it afterwards. But you want to cancel all voter registration. Okay. It's just, I use the analogy. Think about Eli Lilly putting out an election of sorts throughout the corporation. Do you think any of that actually has any impact on policy or making any change within Eli Lilly? It's actually just to get the temperature of the employees to see how far what they're willing to accept. Just like with this the whole voting system that they've hijacked. Then after publishing, that's when you can be able to actually do the cancel of the revocation of taxes, because then once you've published your status correction, it's on the record. Okay? Send those letters. Got your declaration of political status process. Again, we talked about the embossed seal. There's the IRS letters. There's one letter to go to D.C. and one to New York. You got to send both letters, albeit it's the same man. He's serving in 2 different capacities. Do you think he's getting 2 separate pays for that? You can bet he is. And you're going to be sending those registered mail. And on the TASA site, it gives you instructions about how to use registered mail, as well as if you sign up for the newsletter, it'll put you in our email flow so that you can get guidance on being able to do that. And then at that point, you're going to have a PDF scan. You're not going to take photos, and you're not going to collage them all into one. Okay? Separate and organize everything out. In one PDF, put the letter. It may be 2 or 3 pages. If that's it, that's fine. Because some of it will be your cover letter. Then you're going to have the declaration of political status. In that case, or if with just the IRS, it's just the letters. But then you also have where it's a copy of the postage receipt showing that it was actually sent with matching numbers, so that we can verify that's actually what was sent. Also, you want to make the point of another point of why you want to make sure that your mailing number label number is on the letter itself, is because most of the time these places that you're sending your mail to, they have mail processing centers, or they have assistants, right? So most of the time, by the time the actual recipient gets that letter, they're just getting a letter. They're not even seeing the envelope. So if you don't put something on that letter stating that you sent it registered mail, they may not even know, and you've spent all that money, and they'll just toss it aside. Whereas because they see it was sent registered mail, they have to act on what's in there. Then they have to do something with it. Okay? So bear that in mind. But you can email the PDFs to me so that I can then be able to upload them, publish them to your record. All right. So, Sign in America class. This is a great study course. You're going to need it for assembly work, or if wanting to be an elected or appointed official. It reinforces the knowledge that we're going through here. It goes in much deeper. It's not going to go in so much of the paperwork, but it's the jurisdictions and the how to enforce upholding the public law. Okay, so that's going to be beneficial for you. So that's why if you're going to participate on a committee, because you can be a national or a citizen to participate on the committees, or as an elected or appointed official, depending on the role. But as an American State National, you have to have all the canceled contracts, so there's no dual allegiance to anything. But you can still do it as a national as well. But again, you won't be able to act on anything that is from an international perspective. And it's required for the prosperity card. Alright, so what publishing options are available to everyone and what other documents are needed to be completed. So we have, these are the 4 options to publish. So Land Recording Office is with the assembly itself. The Global Family Group, you'll end up having an account there and present your status correction there. But at some point you'll still have to verify whether you are, because if you're, it has a option that if you're already published and you're on the LRO, you can select that because then they'll verify through the LRO, but you still have to present your paperwork in addition to what's on the LRO. And then county recorder's office or newspaper or somewhere online that can be able to maintain how long, when it was published and how long it's been posted there and available to the public. After publishing it, then you've got the declaration of political status to work with, the IRS letters, that kind of stuff. Alright, so any questions before we get into the... Alright, we've got... Alright, so John's on Carroll County, welcome. We got Carroll County, awesome. And we got Jeff on Marion County. Great to see you all, or at least chat with y'all. Alright. So we'll go ahead and get into the fun stuff, history and foundation. Alright, so everyone has these basic questions they're asked. So how are we called into session? By what authority? What documentation gave us the ability to be called into session? Who's our governing authority that also gives us the proper status and standing? Okay. Alright, so we go back to the chaos beginning. 1861, there were 7 southern nation states of America that walked out of the second session of the 36th Congress, March 27th, 1861. And they adjourned sine die, meaning they did not set a new date for to come back. They just didn't give another date. And so they just didn't call it back into session. So that's one reason why we can just start coming back into session as well, because it wasn't formally closed in that when that adjournment occurred. It didn't say adjourned and this is the very last assembly of the assembling of the Congress, and that it didn't end that way. It just didn't have a new date. So that's one way to be able to pick right back up. But it's also why we make sure that we have in our information on our agenda of when the next call date will be. Then April 15th, 1861, Lincoln reconvened Congress through the executive branch proclamation creating General Orders 100, better known as the Lieber Code. And I've got the link here for you. It's not very long, but it is interesting. This required the Army or the Department of Defense today to pay reparations to all non-combatant civilians harmed. So that's important, right? All of this is out there. They had to tell us the truth, but people didn't want to look up anything. We're too lazy to look in it. It's easier to target our neighbor and complain, or our close family member to complain about what's going on, but not actually get involved to do something to make changes. Don't want to get into the history to see what's going on and how to be able to correct it. So in the beginning, the Federation of States, created in September 1776 as a means for the states to act together as one body in international and global jurisdictions. United we stand, right? Coming together as one for the international and global jurisdictions. So you have to have the Federation of States that brings all the states together. The Federation has no national level powers at all, is not in itself a sovereign body. The Federation is an agency of the states representing not the assemblies, but the states, representing the sovereign bodies of the states of the Union in the foreign, international, and global jurisdictions. And in business structure terms, the Federation is an unincorporated holding company. It holds the international and global powers that each of the states grants or bestows to it for their mutual defense and protection. Okay? The Federation wouldn't have it unless the states grant it or bestow it. As an unincorporated holding company, the Federation could then act as a delegator of all powers given to it. So now they've got to be able, you can't just give them that and then tie their hands and say they can't do anything with it. So now they're able to act as delegators to be able to follow through with the powers. They're delegated then to the Confederation, and that once we get get all the state assemblies up to solidly fill in the Federation, then the next step will be rebuilding or reconstructing the Confederation as it was supposed to be. Or as it was originally, because actually all of this was in play for a few years before it just stopped. The powers that were then delegated to the Confederation. Later, another delegation of powers were made under the constitutions. And that's where it's delegating for the 19 services. When any of the subcontractors contracted via constitutions, right? It's the Constitution, or even the Confederation, are unable to function, all delegated powers return to the Federation via operation of law. So we're seeing how it comes back to the Federation to be able to bring this. So where in the Federation are we going to go with this? In order to operate in international global business realms at that time, the Federation had to operate under a recognized sovereign, a head of state, to make a request of another head of state. Unfortunately, each individual state couldn't be recognized as sovereign in international jurisdiction and still have the advantage of mutually shared powers. In order to keep the mutually shared powers, they cannot be considered sovereign in international jurisdiction as one body. So the answer to the dilemma, the founders used the sovereign status of William Belcher, a patriot from Connecticut who John Adams knew, and who later served as a colonel in the Continental Army under Washington. Alright, so we're just tapping into this part, right? So now, when did this great fraud begin, and what caused it? So it began 1861 with the 36th Congress adjourning sine die. Alright. So, William Belcher and his family were granted sovereignty, equal to kings, by William the Conqueror after the Norman Conquest in England. The Magna Carta came later. Like his forefathers, he believed that people should learn to be self-governing. The great seals of both the United States territorial and the United States of America municipal are a part of the Belcher coat of arms array. The evidence and provenance has been carefully handed down through the Belcher family to today. This is why it's very important to know your lineage. But this is also why the Beast purposely separated families, wanted to create, just have immoral acts with anybody possible, so you're having children with anybody and everybody, so you don't know who's what and where they belong, things like that. And this is why, so that people can't find out who they actually are and hold their lineage and provenance in their family line. As a result, he and his progeny became yet another safeguard for the new American government, and the hereditary office of head of state passes down to them because every ship that sails under the Great Seals gifted by Belchers. This means all corporations, ships, and commerce taking place worldwide by American vessels fall under the head of state. And so through that act of expatriation, we're taking them out of those vessels, out of their status of being vassals in theirs, to vessels on the land with landowners as the vessels. The Belchers are still the protectors of the Federation on the sea and in the air. Belcher is an anglicized version of Belcher. The family is Norman French, not British, and Belcher is a clan name, and James Belcher, the head of state, shares this lineage. The Belchers act to protect the interests of the states and people and keep the Federation alive, albeit a skeleton crew of volunteers. But it's a narrow path. It's not a mob rule when the states are not in session. Thus, they summon the states to assemble and take care of business to deal with the mess. Right? So the members of the Federation are all the states of the Union. The 50 states of the Union are represented by states' assemblies. Their state assembly. There's one state assembly per state. Not, here's an assembly over here, the only time you're going to have other assemblies are going to be where it's county level assembly, but it's all connected to the one state assembly. There's no multiple state assemblies in this. There's only one that's actually that represents the actual state of the Union. The Federation continues to hold the mutual powers of all the states. Those gathered to run the Federation's administration are all volunteers right now. They're all volunteers. Functions of the Federation have been dictated to date by past practice and necessity, all of which are practical matters, including locating assets belonging to the states and people and putting an end to the great fraud against Americans. In doing so, we all act under the prudent man fiduciary standards. This means we administer all affairs of state with the same standard we would exercise as if the assets and resources belonged to us in a private capacity, but not for self-interest or personal gain. We use carriage accounting method. And we use the calendar year, not double accrual or fiscal year. Fiscal year is usually starts July 1st, ends June 30th. We go with the calendar year. Double accrual was just nonsense to cause more separation and splitting up. It was to create more problems so that you wouldn't want to do it yourself and want to hire somebody else. And then if you're not counting your own money and somebody is, then are you really in control of your own business? So there are 3 ways our founding fathers determined that the state assemblies may be called into session. They may be summoned by the President of the United States of America unincorporated, but no president has been elected since 1860 as an actual President of the United States of America unincorporated. Lincoln, the only reason Lincoln was able to was because they created the corporation, because he was a bar attorney and he couldn't be president of an unincorporated entity, but he could for a corporation. A committee of 9 state assemblies may call the General Assembly, but the only state still in session was Texas, which would not have allowed a quorum to use this option. There wasn't enough, right? So then the only other option was to be summoned by the hereditary head of state. And this is how we were called into session. Which, by the way, you'll be able to see on theindianaassembly.org. If you go to the top, public record, you'll be able to see all the documents that the Indiana Assembly has done to this date. All right, so what's the Federation and how were the states called into session? All right, so the Federation is the holding company of the international global jurisdictions. It's responsible for calling all the states together. It is the international global jurisdiction representation for the states. General guidance to help stand up the states to protect all Americans working to reconstruct our lawful government. So the Federation is giving that guidance directly. The Federation is the one that has brought me as the state coordinator in to bring the training into the state. Now we can have other co-coordinators for the state, still be a lead, there's still one lead recording, still one lead coordinator for the state, but there can be multiple co-coordinators because there's millions of people on Indiana, as well as we need county directors, and there could be multiple county directors to be able to, like, Marion County is huge. That's probably going to need a few to be able to actually support Marion County to be able to, and then of course Fort Wayne area, larger areas are probably going to need more county coordinators to be able to support. So think about those things. How are the states called into session? Summoned by the United States of America unincorporated under the hereditary head of state. So if you haven't already done so, get your paperwork completed. Key points to remember. Little known safeguard the founders put in place using the Belcher family that allowed the assemblies to be brought into session. The Federation is representation in international jurisdiction for all states, is current governing authority until we can stand up our states. Once we've been able to fill all the offices, build all the committees, get an actual court system set up, and we're in the assembly is in practice, it goes before a review with the Federation. If all is good there, the Federation then will release so that the assembly can be able to stand on its own. The Great Fraud began in 1861 when Congress adjourned sine die after the election of Abraham Lincoln, of our attorney with dual loyalties to the crown, because the bar is the British Attorney Registry. Okay, the second part, assembly mission and new jurisdictions, what they are. So we're going to hopefully be able to zip through these. All right, so again, an overview. We have the original call to session by the Federation. This is an overview of what we're going through. Then the Indiana Assembly mission statement and the three jurisdictions you need to be focused on and know. All right, be it known to all to whom these presents come that there is a lawful and legal means provided for Texas and every other state to assemble. And that means of lawful and peaceful assembly requires the process to take place under the authority and guidance of a recognized summons authority. That's on as Article 3232. The owner of the Great Seals, the hereditary head of state, James Belcher, called the states into session, which is the United States of America, our unincorporated federation of states. And this was the only possible means to call the states back into session. The responsibility of calling the states into session carries obligations, so it's composed of qualified people. And that means you have to actually present so that we can make sure you're qualified, living within the borders of your state. From there, provide discipline, framework, and guidance to establish on each state a general assembly, a business, also known as international assembly. That's the one that only state citizens are eligible to participate with. A jural assembly, which is the public court, and a state militia assembly. General Assembly, Jural Assembly, and State Militia Assembly is comprised of state nationals and state citizens, whereas the Business Assembly is state citizens only. Those that have declared and recorded redemption of their birthright political status are considered qualified people. And that's why we follow the process of the paperwork that we have. And many like to try and bicker with that, and that's through that indoctrination. And some may even be ones trying to infiltrate in and trying to bust through the paperwork, trying to get somebody else to run with their lie to convince that it's different for them. The Reconstruction is in progress and not given to interpretation. The Federation oversees the legal and peaceable nature of the state assemblies that result from the construction. Otherwise, our activities could be mistaken as hostile actions and be legally suppressed by military force. And we're not here for violence. We're here to actually correct. Not here to beat up on anybody, because we've all fallen into this vat. Even the ones that know what they're doing. It was already in play before even they came in. Okay? Once the Indiana State Assembly is fully seated, the Federation will step back from its current oversight duties, and it's our duty to uphold the peace and the public law. So, what's the duty of the Federation relative to the Assembly? Oversight of the reconstruction of the lawful government owed to the people on Indiana. Alright, here's our mission statement, and you're going to hear this read at every single assembly call or gathering. It identifies the 7 distinct functions that have been outlined as the mission for the Indiana Assembly, and all the assemblies have the same mission. Our Indiana Assembly is dedicated to the restoration of a complete and fully operational land and soil. Let me start this way. Yeah. Complete and fully operational land and soil jurisdiction, state and county court system serving the people of Indiana. Okay? That's the one thing. Get the court systems up so we can get our people out of the grips of the beast and help protect them. The preservation of the national trust. The enforcement of the public law, the upholding of the federal constitution owed to our state and people, the repopulation of our land and soil and jurisdiction, and that's already happening as people are papering up. That's how we're repopulating the land and soil jurisdiction. That's why it's important for you to, even if you go through everything totally separate from the assembly, and go ahead and get your paperwork done somewhere else, that's fine. That's great. But in order to validate that we're repopulating our land and soil jurisdiction, you still have to present your paperwork that you've corrected your status, because that adds to populating the land and soil jurisdiction. Okay? Then there's the filling of the vacated public offices. That's filling all the offices that actually need to be filled. And the reclamation of our material and intellectual public and private assets. That's a whole thing that has to be dealt with. To these ends, the living people on Indiana we're not fulfilling all 7 of those before we can separate from the Federation, but most of that has to be in play before we can be separated from the Federation. Because like the populating of the land and soil jurisdiction, that'll be continuously ongoing. That'll just continue. And of course the filling of the offices, because the hope is to keep the offices filled. We'll always want to be preserving the national trust, but our main first priority is getting the court systems up. To these ends, we, the living people on Indiana, have called the eligible Indiana nationals and electors to assemble, and we have established the process and procedure to qualify jurors and others competent to hold state citizenship and public office. And we follow that process in order to be able to have the standing. It's not a he said, she said kind of thing. There's a process. We do this peacefully and without rancor in the exercise of our unincorporated powers and capacities. Alright, so be sure we're all working toward a common goal. We're all equals working toward a better future. We're all volunteers. We're no one's employees. So don't think, certain hours, you should be there. You should be answering my emails, and you should be we all have lives too. It's as we can work it in, and trying to support as many people as we possibly can ourselves. The golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated, with respect, decency, and understanding. And many think, because we are on a path of course correction, a lot of times they're thinking that they're in trouble. They've done things bad. They're getting harped at. It's terrible. No, it's just a matter of course correcting. It was presented incorrectly. This is how to correct it. But it's also, you have to pay attention to the process so you correct it correctly. Not about getting your feelings hurt. Nobody's here about trying to hurt anybody's feelings. You have to bone up here. Don't be all emotional because thinking, well, she's mean, she criticizes everything. Well, pay attention, because this is important. If you just want to willy-nilly it and haphazard it, you can stay where you're at. If you want to do this correctly, you have to correct the errors. Okay? Consider these things. So why are you here? Are you here to build a better future for all Indianians? Or are you here to help get yourself out of things and trying to ease your life up so that it is more of living as an American? And that's totally acceptable and totally fine as well. As long as you're not here definitely looking for means to commandeer offices and assets and things like that in any terms of power or personal gain sort of thing. Will you do your part to reconstruct a lawful government we're all owed? That's a big question. And even if you can't, even if you don't have the time to be able to put in, can you give a regular monthly contribution to help at least hold the fort down? Because there is no pot of money coming from somewhere like the IRS where they've stolen money from everybody and can just do what they want. This is solely funded and operated for, by, and we the people. So that means any way that you can help maintain, because all the services still have to be provided one way or another, right? Even when obstacles, bumps, and scrapes come your way, are you still going to be able to do your part? These questions are things to ponder in your daily life as you grow in knowledge and discernment. As the famous saying goes, united we stand, divided we fall. Okay, so how should we conduct ourselves during assembly meetings? Treat others the way you want to be treated and respect each other. Alright, so now we're going to get into really the hard stuff of jurisdictions. And we got a zip. Alright. Okay, so we're going to lead this way so we can go through it. So we've got these various jurisdictions and who's attached to them. So start thinking that out about which goes together, what you think goes to which. So we'll go ahead though and move on. So we have the Pope is over the air, that's municipal. It's also, the Pope then is the one that's also right in your neighborhood, right next to you, all of that in cities, everything municipal. If that's your water, if you got municipal water, that's your water, right? The crown is over the sea, and then of course the people are on the land for the Federation. So we'll go ahead and see why. So in 1302, the first and largest express trust is created by Pope Boniface VIII, the Unum Sanctum, and in the, I think it's a link, maybe not, but you should be able to do a copy and paste or search. This was followed by the First Testamentary Trust of 1455, the Second Testamentary Trust 1481, third in 1537 by the popes of the time periods. So you'll just do a copy and paste to do the search for those. You have enough there to be able to retrieve those. Because some want to see, well, where is that actual document that states that? Because they don't want to go look up and research for themselves. Well, I'm going to be here to say you got to go look it up. The trust was separated into the different jurisdictions of air, sea, and land. So let's review the differences and their law forms. So my slides, I guess, are a little out of order. So why are the three different jurisdictions? So Pope Boniface VIII started the separation in 1302, and later popes followed with trusts that considered that continued with the separation of jurisdictions. So the heir is the Pope. This is global in nature. It's controlled by the Pope and his appointees, and it's heir. That's why it's also a lot of head games. Things associated with the jurisdiction of the heir: living and dead souls in the form of trusts, wills and patents, ideas global in nature. This includes Roman civil law. There's slavery through the all caps letter name. It's ecclesiastical in nature, and there are harsh punishments. The axiom is, let him who would be deceived be deceived. It's that Caesar washing your hands moment, and well, it's not our fault if they don't do it or if they don't pay attention. So it's nothing holy in any way. So with the sea jurisdiction, then, it's international in nature, controlled by the British monarchs. These are the U.S. citizens, their residents, taxpayer, all vessels, mariners, sailors, merchants, creatures of the sea, international in nature. And think of creatures of the sea. What have the corporations actually become? They've morphed into creatures, right? Sea jurisdiction is private law, international law of the sea. There are attorneys. They have corporations, which are dead entities, and it's all in commerce. And it's through admiralty maritime law. All right, land jurisdiction is national in nature, was given to the Spanish king to control the original trust. The Spanish king gave up his control of the trust of the land jurisdiction back to the people. After the Declaration of Independence, Americans gained control of the land jurisdiction. And it goes back to the land. So it's our duty and responsibility to maintain the land jurisdiction. That means you and me, we all have to roll our sleeves up to be able to support this. However we can, but support in some way, something. So with the land, the people, this is the Federation of States. The jurisdiction of the land are people, animals, planets, and minerals. Therefore, we've got to deal with cleaning up our water supply. We've got to deal with cleaning up the air that we breathe, right? We've got to deal with all the contaminants on our plants to be able to start bringing forth healthy food, right? That's all part of the militia aspect too, about how to support on the land. And with land jurisdiction, we're owed the public law. And the public law is a form of common law, but we're owed the public law aspect of it. So, and this foundation is through common law. It's the Geneva Conventions, the Constitutions, Mosaic Law, Declaration of Independence, Common Sense. Okay, not in any particular order. So who oversees air, sea, and land? Air is the Pope. Roman civil law, sea, crown, admiralty, maritime law, private corporate law. And then the land are the people, common law or public law. So here are short video links for additional information on jurisdictions to support you. Alright, so we'll be meeting next week again, Monday, for the second portion of this of these calls. So you'll want to review the PowerPoint presentation in the invite information there, even though it's for the second for the second call, there's a link that has documents in there that you can be able to review. Review Anna's book, You Know Something is Wrong When. The link there that's on there is the PDF version of it, or you can go to, or you can search online for You Know Something is Wrong When, and you'll be able to find it easily. There's also, it's asnsecure.com. It's the Federation site to be able to purchase the printed book. Think of as well, or you can find it online. Think about your personal mission statement as an American state national or citizen. Try to create one. Anyone that wishes to share in the next class, they may do so at the conclusion of the session. So think about that. Think about why you are here. What do you think? Is there a way that you can be able to help, even if you don't have the time, or skills that you can be able to share, things like that. Even if it's just $10 a month, just to and maintain $10 a month, not just a hit and miss here and there. Just maintain. It's easier to miss. I have one woman that she said a $10 a month, and she's been doing it since she started in first part of 2020. And just consistent with it, because it's easy. That's a small enough amount so that's not really going to hurt you, and still be able to support the assembly. Just some things to think about. All right. So, reminders. The Belcher Safeguard put in place. The founders allowed the assemblies to be called into session after the long slumber. The Federation has oversight until Indiana State is fully assembled to ensure the protection of all Americans upon the land and soil. Everyone needs to consider why they're part of the assembly and why they corrected their status. Even if it's because you have a situation that you're trying to get out of. Come to terms with that. Right? But just know, this is not a get out of jail free card. This is not a diet that you can get off and on anytime you want. You can, but this is about a lifestyle change to actually be who you are and stop living a lie. So remember that the air jurisdiction is the Pope. It's municipal, global jurisdiction. Sea jurisdiction is the British Crown. Territorial, it's in the international. Land is operated by Americans, and it is national. So you have global, international, and national. And here are additional links that you can be able to find the information. And down here is the link tree for the assembly that has all the links so that you can go to the various places in one place, so it's all in one bookmark. All right. I want to thank everyone for, I don't know why that stayed little in the box there. Okay, I want to thank everyone. I'll see if there's any questions. I'm not seeing any questions. All right. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up, and hopefully we'll be able to see everyone in the Journal Assembly here in about half an hour, about 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern. I want to thank you all for taking the time and congratulate you on wanting to move forward in this direction. I welcome you all home. Peace and love. Have a great night.
Goodbye.